Welcome to my craft room makeover. Every week I'm going to be doing a craft or two that is going to transform my space. I have been working really hard for the last 6 months to bring everything together, but now there's a couple projects that I really want to help bring my craft room alive. Let's go. Hey everyone, it's Sam from the Auntie team, and you're watching The Sam Show. Let's go make some fun things. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Auntie's channel and another episode of my craft room makeover. Today I'm going to show you how I glittered and epoxied my island countertop, and I'm freaking obsessed. So I can't wait to show you how amazing it turned out using Auntie's pixie dust. So here we go. This is the before of my island. Matt, my husband, made it for me. It's on casters so I can move it around. I really love it. And it's just plywood, and I covered it with the Duck brand Faux marble vinyl, and it worked out great, but I was ready to level it up. And since we recently renovated our bathroom, we actually had this leftover wood that was a lot nicer than just the plywood. So we did a couple base coats of white, and then I'm using chalked up paint in Blanco and Ellie, and I'm just drawing lines in it because I want to give it a marble look. So I did a base of white to make it wet and kind of dull it down, and then I went in with Ellie and I painted it. Now, I knew a couple things about painting marble, that all the lines should generally go in the same direction. You don't want to make X's, and they have all different sizes, but this wasn't my favorite. This layer that I did a couple other layers that I kind of found a new technique that I'll show you guys later on. And then it was time to start prepping and getting the area ready for resin. Matt is super handy at this. I mean, he was a contractor for a while and he's great at it. So I was so thankful that he had the plastic on hand already and he showed me how to wrap the table. Pretty much what we did is we just draped it over the table, and then we cut just the section out, and we use painter's tape to hold it up along the edge. We also put plastic on the floor, so don't worry, our floors are protected. You can see then we cut slits across and put the tape all the way around to protect it, just in case any drips went off. We weren't doing a flood coat, we only planned on putting enough resin up to the edge. And now's our time to mix our epoxy resin. As you can see, we are both wearing respirators and gloves. I'm getting at eye level to measure out my epoxy resin. I am using artist resin from Counterculture DIY, and this resin is older, that's why it's yellow, but I wanted to use it up, and it's great for doing surfaces like this. You want to make sure you're measuring equal parts of both, and I like to get on eye level as you can see from this really awesome shot, just to make sure that it's exactly where it should be. So I'm going to have completely cured resin. And a tip to deal with the yellow epoxy is to do a couple drops of blue alcohol ink, and I went a little heavy-handed on it. I wish I would have only done like maybe 1 or 2 drops because it did turn it blue. It wasn't the end of the world, and by the time you put it out onto the surface, it wasn't nearly as dark as it looked in the tub, but I just wanted to counteract the yellow, so I guess I'd rather have blue than yellow. Once I was sure that it was mixed really well, I decided to go in with Counterculture has dispersion color, and I did a little bit of white just because I was really worried with how blue it was. And I already added the Pixie Dust Frost Ultrafine from Auntie. You can see it shimmering in there. It is so pretty. And then I started pouring it out all over the table. I just guessed at how much resin I needed to mix. I'm an eyeballer, but there are calculators online that can help you figure out how much you will need before you start a project. And then it was just go time. There's only so much working time, about 20 to 30 minutes with artist resin in this big of a surface, that I was trying to get it spread out ASAP. I was just using a little makeup brush that was a silicone brush, but I wish I would have used something bigger. It just would have been nicer. And with how much of a surface area this was, I made Matt come and help me and spread it out, and we really just tried to pull it to the edge as much as possible. Once I had the table completely covered in resin, I then took a little bit extra and mixed the chunky glitter. This was so pretty, and I really wanted to do the chunky mixed in with the ultrafine to give it depth and dimension. I thought of this project kind of like a giant Milky Way tumbler, because those are my favorite style tumblers, and that's kind of the look I was getting for with the marble on the table. And you can see I'm using the other brand new Auntie chunky white mix that's so pretty, and I took the chunky glitter and I kind of filled in to where my veins were that I had painted. And I just took both sets of chunky glitters and kind of just spaced them out along and used my reusable popsicle stick to just even it out. And you can see the ultrafine next to it. It's so pretty. When I was all finished with that, I went in with a torch. And I made sure that I was keeping the torch moving. I didn't keep it in one area too long because I really did not want to burn the resin. I then let it sit for 24 hours. I think it was actually a little bit longer before I did my next layer. After the first layer was cured, I went in with a spray bottle and a sanding brick, and I got to sanding. The water bottle just helps keep the dust down. You really want to be careful with resin dust. Once my surface was cleaned after I sanded it, I went in with Blanco and Ellie chalked up paint, and I took a damp sponge and went over my lines that I thought were a little too dark. They looked a little too unnatural, and I just did little dabs with the paint to dull them down, and it also kind of gave them that wavy marble look. I did Blanco first, like you just saw, and then I went in with Ellie, and you can see how it really mutes the color and kind of gives it a watercolor effect. It was really cool, and the thing I liked about doing it on the resin was, since the resin is cured, it's really easy to take the paint off. And then I found if I take a really, really thin paintbrush and I get it wet with paint and hold it at the very end of the brush, it gives you a lot more natural looking marble lines. Then I went in and literally just flicked little splatter paints all over. You can see I was trying not to get lines right on top of each other, and make a couple new ones, I think it looks so much more natural. And now I just have to put another layer of epoxy on it. You can see how it kind of covers up that glitter, but it's still shown through. I love it. The depth that it creates is amazing. And oh boy, if you thought I mixed a lot of blue in the first mix, I really did overkill on this one, but I was stuck with it, and honestly, I don't hate it. The blue tones in it gave it more depth. I did mix more ultrafine pixie dust in with this batch, but I did not do any more chunky glitter. I just really wanted to get the ultrafine glitter out there for more depth, but I was worried if I did too much chunky, it would kind of cover up the depth I already created. It was really rewarding with every layer to see it come to life as much as it did. So this is after the second layer of epoxy. It's extremely glittery, as you can see. I love it so much, but I'm not done. When the second layer was cured, I went in and sanded it down again. This process is just really important for getting a level, even surface, and it helps the resin to stick onto the next layer. And then I did go in with another layer of paint with Ellie and Blanco, sponging it using the paintbrush to give little lines. I did less and less lines every time to kind of look like they're, trailing off. So I didn't get heavy-handed as I went on. I definitely got lighter-handed, but just adding that little extra paint every time really seemed to make a difference, and I was obsessed with the little splatter marks, so I really went to town on this last layer with that because I just love the look that it gave. But you can see I kept flicking myself with paint too, so just use precaution. And if I had a big splash, then you can see I was holding the end of the brush and just smearing it out. The goal is to not be perfect, which is why I've been really loving painting lately. Is you don't need to be perfect. Marble's not perfect, but that's what makes it beautiful. And here is a close-up. You can see the little splatters that I love so much, and you can see the ripples. This was before I epoxied it one last time, but see how there's dimension with the chunky being underneath and all these little layers I'm starting on top. Okay, last layer, here we go. You can see I refrained from adding any blue alcohol ink. I mixed up a big batch because I really wanted to make sure that this was going to cover all of it, and I'd rather have too much than not enough. And I used the spatula instead of the small little silicone makeup brush. For time's sake, I spread it all out and torched it again one last time without trying to over torch it. I was really picky to make sure that everything was completely covered, as this is my last coat and I wanted it to be perfect. And here she is, all completely cured. I am so in love. I know I say I'm obsessed with everything that I pretty much make, but this has to be one of my all-time favorite things I've done. Every time I look at it, I find a new little spot or a new line that I just am so in love with. And I really hope you guys love this experience, and I hope you guys want to paint marble too. But this piece just elevated my craft room so much, and I can't wait for you guys to see it all come together in the next video.